Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you that are calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through the call, bottom line the information for you. We know you're busy people, you have other things to do, and we have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the potential reset of the other currencies. A few minutes talking about the program we put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about the situation as it exists in Iraq. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is relevant. The most relevant piece of information would, of course, be a window for the the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar in country. Right now, we're looking at a potential window of between 45 and 60 days. Even though we've gone beyond January, and a worst-case scenario would be January of 2021, there is reason to believe that there could be a reinstitution in the next 45 to 60 days, and we'll be discussing that here. First, let's talk about the situation dealing with the prime ministership and the new government in Iraq. It's a very fluid situation. At present, there are 4 individuals that are named as potentially the new prime minister. The first would be Mohammed Alawi, who in my opinion would be the best individual. He is the current prime minister designate. Second would be Abdul Mahdi. That is the caretaker prime minister who stepped down because he was unable to form a new government in the requisite time. The third person is an old name which is kind of cropped back up, but would potentially be a viable candidate, and that would be Haider al-Abadi. And, of course, the corrupt Iranian-backed Shia politicians can't help themselves, so they had to throw into the ring the name of Nouri al-Maliki. Those of us that have had currencies for some length of time know pretty much who this clown is. He has absolutely no chance whatsoever, but I'm thinking that the pro-Iranian officials threw him in there only to have a throwaway in terms of negotiation. Because if Maliki were to ever become the prime minister again, the UN, the IMF, the United States, and pretty much the international community would walk away from Iraq and say, you deserve extinction. So I don't think that's going to happen. Now, at present, there are negotiations between President of the Republic, Barham Salih, and the various political blocs. Of course, Iranian interference continues. Their new ploy is that Iraq cannot proceed with the continued interference of the United States. Of course, it's just the reverse. It's the interference of Iran that's been the problem. But since the untimely and well-deserved death of Soleimani, the Iranians have been unable to continue to manufacture mischief in Iraq, and they have some new issues to deal with, which I'll be touching on. Now, once Alawi resigned, according to the Constitution, President of the Republic had 15 days to name another nominee for the prime ministership, and if approved, he had subsequently thereafter 30 days to form a new government. Now, with that timetable, the 15 days would be up on March 17th, which is about a week from now. There is the distinct possibility that someone could get named in the next week, and let's hope that's the case. Because if that happens, we very well could see the reinstitution in the next 45 to 60 days. Now, on Sunday, the Shia blocs did release a statement claiming that they had come to an agreement for a new prime minister. But we are unclear as to whether they are saying they have come to an agreement with the other political blocs, or they have come to an agreement among themselves who they want to formally nominate. So we'll see how that plays out. In the meantime, Abadi, who at one time, of course, was prime minister, has formed a new victory coalition. My understanding is that coalition is gaining strength, and they have already established a 6-point initiative to bring the various political blocs and the protesters together to resolve all of their issues. So things actually could be moving in the right direction. Now, there is one other issue, and it is the X factor of the coronavirus. The coronavirus to date has severely affected 4 countries: China, of course, South Korea, Italy, and the 4th country is Iran. So in addition to their economic problems, in addition to the sanctions of the United States, they're now dealing with the coronavirus. The United States, through back channels, has offered to assist them. They've either declined that assistance or remained silent on that offer, although in the past the United States and Iran have had backdoor agreements which differ from the things that they're saying for their own internal political consumption. But suffice to say, Iran is in very desperate straits, which is one of the reasons why they are desperately trying to have the United States out of Iraq. That's not going to happen. Now, there is one other thing going on geopolitically which actually could assist us in a backhanded way. The Russians, and of course Iran is a proxy of Russia and the foothold for the Russians through Iran and Syria to re-enter the Middle East. The Russians have increased oil production with the intent of dropping the price of a global barrel of oil low enough to create a problem for the fracking industry in the United States, because long-term the fracking industry will kill Russia. Remember, 75 to 80% of their revenue is generated from the global price of oil. So they're basically increasing production and reducing the price, which on the short term hurts them in order to harm our fracking industry. Now, the Saudis are the mortal enemies of Iran, therefore they're an enemy of Russia. They are also allied with the United States. In addition, as a member of the OPEC nations, Saudis tend to go it alone as the largest producer within that group. So the Saudis have decided to substantially drop the price of a barrel of oil. Now, I don't want to get into the weeds too much, but there's a reason I'm bringing this up. The substantial drop in the price of a global barrel of oil means that the Iraqi 2020 budget has projections of revenues based on a much higher price of a barrel of oil, somewhere between $55 to $60, and we're looking at a price of a barrel of oil that could drop to as low as $30. So in a backhanded way, this could assist us, because the notion that they would wait until January 21 to redo the budget because they're making payments at $11.80 and they don't want to redo the budget with a reinstituted rate could be overcome by the fact that because the price of a barrel of oil has dropped so much, they would necessarily have to redo the budget to account for the lower revenues. So I know it's kind of complicated and intertwined, but for all of the things that I've stated here, I still think that there's a distinct possibility that we're looking at a reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar in the next 45 to 60 days. One other point. If Iraq continues to falter solely because of political infighting and corruption, the UN, the IMF, and the United States are going to walk away, and that even the corrupt Iranian officials know cannot be sustained. So that's where we stand today. I'm frankly going to buy some more dinar because I do think that if you look at the thing from an aerial view from far off, it looks like the things are in place that need to be done to finally push this through and get the reinstitution. Now, for those of you that are holding Dinar, and most of the Dinarians in this country are regular folks like myself, not experienced with a substantial amount of wealth, will for the first time in their life be confronted with having to make some critical decisions about how to manage wealth that you could acquire overnight. To that end, Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist you. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust package. Post-RV involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. So let's start with Phase 1, which is, again, the establishment of your package of pre-RV asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust product. Now, there are a number of entities one can establish to provide some level of asset protection. For example, an individual can establish an LLC or a sub-S corporation, and they do provide some asset protection, but primarily by separating business assets from personal assets. There are two problems here. First, the possession of the currencies is a personal asset, not a business asset. And second, courts have ruled that LLCs and sub-S corporations that are owned in the majority by one person or a closely held group can be pierced for civil litigation. So the LLC and the sub-S corporation are not going to provide the asset protection you're going to need and want. Some individuals have established revocable or living trusts, and those trusts do exempt one's estate from the cost and delay of probate, and can in some cases substantially reduce and even eliminate the federal estate tax. But the living or revocable trust product does not provide any privacy or asset protection, so they're going to be inappropriate for your needs. Some individuals have established a single irrevocable trust, and that will provide some privacy and asset protection, certainly more than the other entities I just described. But there is an inherent flaw in a single trust, and it's this. In a single trust, your entire net worth and all of your assets are housed in that one trust. So if any asset within that trust is drawn into civil litigation, that would necessarily bring all of your other assets into that litigation as well. So that's going to be insufficient. The only bulletproof asset protection available domestically is the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and I'm going to explain two things to you today. First, how such a package works, and second, why this package must be established prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. So let's start with the latter. There are a number of reasons why you need to establish this trust package pre-RV. First, this trust package will provide you with privacy and anonymity, meaning that the assets within this trust are sealed. The general public, therefore, will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package, you will be avoiding personal IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will probably spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming. It would certainly be frustrating because it comes along at precisely the time that these currencies have revalued, and there's many other things you'd much rather be concentrating your time on. And third, the cost of a 6-year audit would probably be more than the cost of our asset protection trust package. On the other hand, if your trust package is in force and you have assigned your pre-RV currencies to our trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of the revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for 2 reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an IRS audit if this revaluation were to occur within a rather sophisticated trust package like ours. And second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is if you plan on gifting currencies to family and friends. We've established as part of this package a special gift subtrust. Now, philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to give currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the U.S. dollar lump sum after you have negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, you can gift to them through this subtrust. And because you're gifting through this specially designed subtrust, their U.S. dollars will be protected along with yours. In addition, you will be the one that will be able to manage, invest, and distribute this money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. Lastly, the specific language of this subtrust states that you will give up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies to these individuals. This is important because this means that you can give to them the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you 2 quick scenarios. Scenario number 1, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But remember, probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie your estate up for years, and in some cases, even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for your estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax. But the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. Scenario number 2, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million. But this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV package of asset protection trusts is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer those currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust package is structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000. The value of the currencies at the time you transferred them out of title to our trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This will protect you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets. This is specifically why we've established a package of trusts, and this is how it would work. We'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They revalue subsequently for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. This is what constitutes the package. Now, why is this important? I'll give you an example. Let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars. You have an accident. The accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely a beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is the important part. All of your other assets and net worth are protected in the other subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate sub-trusts are separate legal entities or persons, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal entity or person. So your trust package works very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of asset protection trusts prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in all the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages post-RV. Many of our clients have expressed a desire to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is through the direct transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We'll also have our tax specialists there, as many of you for the first time will need to understand and implement some very sophisticated tax strategies now that you've acquired this wealth. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to need to reposition your assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds from the accounts at those banks. We also know that the general global shift from fiat-based to Basel III compliant commodity-backed currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth in tangible assets. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV and your financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, one optional gift sub-trust, which can at any time be converted to a standard sub-trust, and 8 additional standard sub-trusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized for our more affluent clients, a package which had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to work with the Dinarian community, we knew that price tag was going to be unaffordable for too many. So by basically simplifying that trust and postponing funding till after the revaluation, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. There are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we do have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket cost just to produce and deliver your trust package to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. Now, we established this financing arrangement, which is rather unusual, so that anybody that has currencies and understands the need for getting their affairs in order and their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your credit card would be substantially less than the $100 a month that you would pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. One other point. This is a one-time only fee for the life of this trust. The only other cost would be the paralegal fees to make changes to your trust or to subsequently fund your subtrusts. For example, let's say after the revaluation you contacted us 90 days later and said, folks, we just are negotiating the purchase of a $500,000 beach house, and we want to create a subtrust to protect that beach house. We could create that subtrust to protect a $500,000 asset for the paralegal fee of approximately $150. So the paralegal fees are going to be extremely nominal, and frankly, after the revaluation, will be of absolutely no consequence to you whatsoever. Now, we're going to go to a Q&A in a little while. But before we do, and again for our newer callers, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider allowing us to assist you. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for about a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning, and it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. Under our system of civil litigation, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death, and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, under our system of civil litigation, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV, as we understand them. So again, thanks for listening to the call. We'll be going to the Q&A in just a moment. If the things we've discussed here are of interest to you, I strongly suggest you contact us and get our initial no-obligation package. It has a lot of information about us, about trusts, about the revaluation. It includes everything you need should you decide to proceed with the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts. In addition, after reviewing the package, if you have any questions at all, you can contact us by phone or email. We'll be happy to answer whatever questions you may have, and there will be no consultation fee. So I suggest you have a pen and paper handy in order to get our contact information. I'm about to open the Q&A. 2 quick rules on the Q&A. First, we take no service calls on the Q&A. This time is reserved specifically for people that have questions about Trusts Unlimited. And second, for obvious reasons, in order to participate in the Q&A, your name and number must be on the screen. So I'm going to open right now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon, with the exception of the last digit. Rather than dialing 4, you'll dial a 3, and then use the same access code, which is 739-394#. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, and enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out periodically pre-RV, but after the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, emails will probably be going out on a weekly basis. So let's check our calls. We have a call today from area code 347. That's 347. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is in from New York. I have a question about the Russia Saudi oil war. Now, could that also delay the RV because of the oil price?
I don't think that it would, in and of itself, delay. And the reason is this. The reduction in the price of oil will have a negative effect on the revenue generation for Iraq. But in my opinion, that would be another reason for them to reinstitute their currency. So not only, this is just my opinion, as I'm looking at it as an investor. I'm an investment advisor, so I have to look at things not just from, what I want to see happen, but as an investor, how am I looking at it? I think a reduction in the price of oil would require the Iraqis to try to offset it. As an example, in the United States, in anticipation of a recession, the United States basically is projecting that for the rest of the year, they're going to eliminate some of the FICA in order to to put more money in the hands of citizens to try to offset the economic slowdown. Well, the way the Iraqis would accomplish that would be to reinstitute their own currency. So I view it actually in a backhanded way of assisting us in the reinstitution.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Bye-bye. Well, that seems to be our... Oh, we got another caller just popped in here. This is area code 603. That's 603. Go ahead.
Hey, Jim, it's Don in New Hampshire. How you doing, buddy?
Okay, how you doing, my friend?
Good. I listened to the whole call, and then when I hit the *6, it didn't work, so I hung up and called back in, and that's why it just popped up there now. So.
All right.
Anyway, how'd your daughter make out? How'd you make out there?
Well, unfortunately, her condo complex has been the structural damage is too much, so she's having to move. She lost some personal assets, but nothing of great value. So I'll be making trips down there to assist her with some more purchases and moving and all of that. Not quite sure where she's going to go. The insurance company put her up in a hotel, but that's only going to be till the end of this month. So we have basically 2 weeks to find another place for her. So, but I appreciate your asking. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hopefully everything works out there and she continues to do well. Okay. There's articles online and everything with the gurus and all about Article 8. And one of them says it's up to the CBI to accept Article 8. What is Article 8, and is it something they can accept, or does it come automatic? What's that all about?
Article 8 is part of the IMF. In order to be a full participant in the IMF and to reinstitute their currency, they have to be Article 8. Now, the IMF has, I call it training wheels, Article 14. Article 14 is where where Iraq is right now, which is sort of, how do I explain it? It's the JV, it's not the varsity, okay?
Okay.
Now, by going to Article 8, they're going to have to meet certain criterion. One of them, of course, being the 2% disparity between the auction rate and the stated rate of the dinar, and that's another issue with the auctions. Yes, of course, the CBI would accept in that the CBI has got to accomplish what's necessary in order to be Article 8 compliant. Now, the threat from the IMF is that if they don't get their act together, they're going to stay indefinitely in Article 14. So they want to be Article 8, but of course they got to get their act together. The first thing that has to happen is the blocs have to agree on a prime minister. The prime minister then must form a cabinet, which will then be accepted by the parliament. And then, of course, they have to pass the budget. But because of the issue with the oil revenues, they're probably going to have to recalibrate the budget. My argument is that because they're going to have to go back in and mess with the budget anyway, the idea that they aren't going to reinstitute because they didn't want to mess with the budget, now they have to mess with the budget anyway. So they might as well, if they've made payments at the 1180 rate, readjust the finance committee at the reinstituted rate, whatever it's going to be.
Okay, and some of the articles that I've read say that, in theory anyway, the CBI is totally separate from the government.
The CBI...
Okay? And they can actually do what they want when they want.
Yes and no. They are right now being managed by the finance committee because they were not doing their job and because they had to get rid of some people in there. Remember, a few months back there was some corruption involved in the CBI, so there's sort of remedial work being done with the CBI. But when everything's operating it's supposed to, the CBI is quasi-autonomous, simply as the judiciary is. But they're still subject right now as we speak to supervision of the finance committee. But that it's funny because all the lines have been blurred because of the corruption, because of the selfishness, because of the sectarian and tribal issues. It's a shame. We're dragging this country kicking and screaming into the 21st century, but we might, fortunately, I think the top three choices for Prime Minister, Alawi, Mahdi, and Abadi, are all three guys that can actually get the job done if they can just keep the damned Iranians out of their affairs. So we'll just have to wait and see how this plays out.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, it's all interesting stuff, and it's bewildering that the people that are in that country that can't come together and say, okay, let's do this for the betterment of everybody, all the tribes, all the sects, everybody. Let's do it for the betterment, you know. But the inflating.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been going on for 1,400 years, so it's, you know,
yeah, exactly.
It's hard to teach an old dog new tricks.
Absolutely. Okay, Jim.
All you got to do is look at what's going on in our government. We've been a stable republic for 235 years, and it's a mess right now. So it's just, you know, it's unfortunately politics by definition is combative. It just is.
For sure. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jim, and I go out there to help your daughter out and hope everything works good. So we'll talk to you.
Bye bye.
See you. Okay. Bye.
Okay, our next caller is area code 801.
Jim, hey, this is Clay.
Yes, sir.
How are you this afternoon, sir? Or morning, I guess.
Right.
Good. I'm glad to hear your family is safe, although their property was destroyed. At least your family's safe. Listen, the reason I'm asking this question is I talked to Tony Breitling yesterday. I was on one of his conferences, and he's adamant that the CBI is a separate entity from the government, but it wouldn't appear so because of the way they've been doing things over the past several years. I just don't get what makes you think that they're going to do anything to change anything. I think Alawi was as close as we've ever gotten to an independent, honest government in Iraq, because all of these political blocs want what they want, and they're not going to let a prime minister get in there unless they get what they want. So I'm wondering what you think is going to force them to revalue their currency. Obviously, oil is dropping because of the war between Saudi Arabia and Russia. And the Iraqis can't maintain their economy with oil anywhere below $50 a barrel. So what's the trigger that's going to get them to do this?
I'll tell you the trigger. If they don't do it, the UN, the IMF, and the United States are going to walk away. And remember, the IMF is in a position to guarantee substantial loans to them to help them weather this storm, because I don't think this thing's going to work. I don't think the lower prices of oil is going to stay very long. I don't think the Russians have the clout to deal with the United States and the Saudis. And of course, the Saudis are acting on their own, but the United States and Saudi together. I mean, basically, Russia is a third world oil dump. All right, you take away their oil and their military, they're a third world country. This is the only leverage that they have. But with the United States and the Saudis versus them, they ain't got a prayer. So I think this will resolve itself at some point. But the only way that, if it's true that this were to be sustained, they're going to need the help of the IMF and the United States to guarantee loans, and it's not going to happen if they're kissing the Iranians behind. I'm just being honest with you. They're going to have to make a very, very hard choice in the very near future.
Well, do you think that the 2020 budget's still a factor, because we're getting close to passing that quarter fiscal period that they would need to make those changes? Right.
That's another reason why they got to move.
Okay.
I mean, it's where I don't know what to tell you. It's the count. It's a full count, and the ball's coming down there. So it's going to be a swing or a miss, or
Well, I've been waiting 15 years, and I'm just looking to hear something that's going to make these guys shift gears, because I think everybody is really tired of what's going on in Iraq, and if they want to play on the international level, they're going to have to make some swift decisions on what they're going to do.
Precisely. Well, another advantage is Trump's in the White House, and whether they think he's a man true to his word or whether they think he's crazy, they're afraid of that guy, and that's good. That's a good thing. They don't know what the guy's going to do. I'm telling you, when they took Soleimani out, that changed the calculus for everybody, including the Iraqis. I think they realize the United States isn't going away. The military's not going away. The Iranian militia are not going to continue to wreak havoc. And the next on the list, Trump a few weeks ago made a statement just off the cuff, and there wasn't much said about it, but they were talking about continued interference. What's going to happen if Iran continues to interfere? And he just off the cuff, as he's walking out of the room, said, well, their oil fields are next on the list. I think that said a lot. I think that told the Iranians that they're really playing with fire here. So hopefully, we don't have to have perfection. They've just got to bring one of these guys in. They just have to hold their nose and accept the cabinet. And the CBI's already gotten a lot of its work done. So it could happen quickly.
So the zeros have been deleted, and that money's ready to roll as soon as they do the RV. Is that what you're saying?
My understanding is the project to delete the zeros is completed. The lower denoms are in the possession of the 8 regional banks for release, but they need the government formed and they need the budget passed, and then this could all happen in the next 2 weeks. I mean, they don't have to have a permanent prime minister. They've got a prime minister designate, although he stepped back, and they have the caretaker prime. They technically have two guys that could step in on an interim basis and reestablish. They could agree to have an election in 90 days and just bring a guy in, and paper it over so they can proceed. I can assure you this. There's a lot of talk.
Go ahead.
I was going to say there's a lot of back channel talk going on, not only between the United States and Iraq, but also between the United States and Iran. I really think when they took Soleimani out, I really think that changed the calculus. The Iranians have been very quiet, even for their own internal consumption. They haven't been having all these Death to America rallies. So hopefully everyone can behave long enough to get this done.
Do you think this currency manipulation law that Trump's put in place will have an effect on Iraq going forward?
Hopefully, but although that has as much to do with China as anyone else, they talk about the golden Clinton years, but remember, everything that Clinton got credit for, he was written by the Republicans in the Congress, which he vetoed several times. But he did two things which hurt us badly. Number one, NAFTA, which killed manufacturing, and number two, allowing China's entry into the World Trade Organization, because that gave them access to the international markets, and they immediately started manipulating their currency in order to corner the trade market. The United States, unfortunately, still is their largest trading partner, and their supply chain comes through the United States, which is why the coronavirus, it's frankly a miracle that we've only had 30 deaths, because we got more access to China than anybody. So
explain one last thing to me, and I'll let you go, sir. These currency auctions, how does that benefit Iraq, and why do they continue to do them?
They sell their currency in order to get the U.S. dollar because they need a reserve currency. That's basically what they were doing. But what was happening was there was a spread between the national rate in country for an Iraqi citizen and the auction rate. And so it was almost like an arbitrage, and all of the corrupt politicians were making money on the spread. So they didn't want the auctions to stop because they were skimming the auctions. And, of course, what was a lot of that money going to the Iranians?
Are they still doing that, though, Jim?
No. That's if it's happening, it's very, very limited amount. And, of course, the Shia political blocs that are being obstructionist are only doing it because, their thing is, hey, I'm making whatever it is. I'm making $2,500 a day on this deal. I don't want it to end, or, whatever the number. I'm just making up a number. But at some point, they got to understand that not getting it done is going to be worse for them. And that's finally the position I think they found themselves in, because they have no electric grid. The people are just going to storm them. It's just not going to continue. It can't continue. They have to get their act together.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, sir, for that input.
Yes, sir. Take care.
Have a good day.
You too. Well, Clay was our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to the call. Those of you that are calling in for the first time, or perhaps have listened in a few times and haven't contacted us, I hope you will, to get our initial no-obligation package. Again, it has a lot of information about us, about the revaluation, about trusts, has everything you need in the package if you should decide that you want to proceed with establishing a trust. You can contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you, and there will be no consultation fee. Our next call, of course, will be next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we will try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.